Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. It is a pleasure to welcome you to our monthly webinar, RC07 Women and Politics in the Global South from the International Political Science Association, IPSA. We're very delighted today to introduce our special guest, Dr. Purma Ray Chaudhry, the speaker for our today's webinar. I'm going to give you like a brief a summary of her biography, though I know she has a long biography. It's a very, very impressive one. Dr. Ray Chaudhry completed her PhD at the School of Law and Government, Dublin City University, under the prestigious EU Marie Curie ETN Global India Fellowship. Her doctorate thesis entitled Gender and Political Parties, Pathways to Women's Political Participation explores the intersection of gender and politics in India. She holds an MA and MPhil from the Center for Political Studies from Nehru University, New Delhi, India. Her research interests span across gender and politics, feminist institutionalism, populism, and right-wing politics. Dr. Ray Chaudhry has an impressive publication records from renowned journals. We look forward to her insightful analysis today on gendered institutional belongings in the All-India Trinamool Congress, AITC, today. Before I give the floor to Dr. Ray Chaudhry, let me give you a brief summary of who we are and what is the purpose of RC07. So as a background, recognized as a study group in 1988, granted research committee status in 1992, changed name from Women and Politics in Developing Nation to Women and Politics in the Global South in December 2015. Our focus are on the process of, development, issues of gender inequality, political regimes, the interplay of micro-political processes, representation, decision-making, the allocation of resources, democratization, and the removal of iniquitous relationship at all levels. The committee RC07 has to date paid particular attention to the issues of women, debt, and structural adjustment, women and the environment, women in the democratization process, and debt and structural adjustment, impact on women, ethnic conflict, and women's human rights. The committee is currently undertaking a special study on also women's leadership in economics institutions and other relevant topics. So within this context, I would like to invite everyone who has the interest on women and politics in, in the Global South to submit their pitches. Would love to hear from you and would love to have you present your research to us, whether women, men from different perspectives to actually present their topics on these issues. So without further ado, I welcome Dr. Ray Chaudhry to actually present her topic today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you, Swarna, Uditi, and all the members of IPSA RC07 for the kind words of welcome, for the opportunity to let me present and share my research with you. I'm really looking forward to everyone's feedback. So I shall begin my talk. As you can see that it is a feminist institutionalist study of an interpretive one of women's political participation and representation, as well as belonging, experiences of belonging in the All-India Trinamool Congress, which shall be called AITC henceforth. So in the broader context of women's critical underrepresentation at the higher levels of Indian legislative politics, my paper presents a qualitative interpretive study of the gendered institutional culture of the AITC and the institutional belonging of women party members. So the two primary research questions, as you can see here, are firstly, how does the AITC frame the political participation of women, both symbolically as well as substantially? And secondly, how do the women party members communicate their sense of belonging in the institutional spaces of the party? Okay, so feminist institutionalism is the theoretical framework of this research that informs this research. And I will talk more about it in somewhat greater detail in the later slides. And the methodological approach is informed by the interpretivist methodological orientation or framework, which primarily seeks to understand meaning making by socially situated individuals. As you can also see that my primary research method has involved document analysis, party documents, autobiographies of political leaders, newspaper reports, etc., as well as in-depth semi-structured interviewing of women party workers. I've also spoken to male party workers and leaders for their perspective, but the political choice has been to privilege women party members since I'm studying their institutional belonging, their experiences of belonging. Okay, so briefly going over the paper structure, this paper is divided into 4 sections. The theoretical framework, which I will talk briefly about. The other section is termed as gendering party organization. It outlines the party structure, the organizational culture, and discusses women's descriptive representation and the role of the women's wing in particular. The other section is called the gendered policy orientation of the AITC government, which offers an interpretivist analysis of 3 social security schemes, or some of them are cash transfers, some of them are unconditional cash transfers, schemes which are very popular in West Bengal, as well as they have created similar models of such cash transfer schemes elsewhere, inspired by these schemes. And these cash transfer schemes particularly target women, younger women, as well as women of all ages in this time. So what would be their impact on the party culture, and how does it inform the party as well as the policy orientation, gendered policy orientation? The final section focuses on the institutional belonging of women party members. It focuses on how women party members come to access the party, the familial networks, how they perceive and imagine the party. So sometimes they imagine the party as a family. So these are the points that I will be covering. Coming to the theoretical as well as the methodological aspects. Firstly, let us focus on feminist institutionalism. It is the new institutionalist approach, and it focuses on the intersections between formal rules and informal behavioral codes and practices which produce a gender regime, as well as institutional continuity. Feminist institutionalism also focuses on the co-constitutiveness of institutions and actors who inhabit such institutions. It underlines the pervasiveness of gender in the everyday functioning of institutions, the standards of appropriateness. What are the standards of appropriate behavior, of appropriate being, which are more often than not drawn from extra-institutional, social, as well as cultural modes. Feminist institutionalist scholars have identified political parties as gatekeepers to women's participation in politics, democratic electoral politics. Coming to the interpretivist approach, as I said before, it seeks to understand meaning making by socially situated individuals. That is how individuals make sense of their social settings. Through this approach, this paper has sought to uncover very subtle meanings that often lie behind seemingly innocuous statements. In particular, the paper has adopted the logics approach that has been developed by Jason Glynos and David Howard. They call it the post-structuralist logics approach. Logics can be regarded as rules governing institutional practice, and they often combine formal regulative frameworks with informal behavioral codes and expectations. So it aligns with the thrust of feminist institutionalism, broadly speaking. The paper has sought to delineate the 3 main institutional logics, as you can see on the screen: social logics, political logics, and phantasmatic logics. These are the terms that have been concepts that have been developed by Glynos and Howard. So in the particular context of my paper, social logics will refer to gendered codes that condition or frame women's representation and participation. Political logics will discuss or cover gendered binaries and antagonisms that undergird or support an institutional culture. And lastly, phantasmatic logics often speak of the emotional appeals of dominant gender constructions to the actors. Data has been gathered, like I said, in the form of party documents, newspaper reports, and semi-structured interviews. The interviews have been interpreted with reference to the documents as well as newspaper reports and other, other forms of triangulation. It covered women members across different layers of the party hierarchy. However, the challenges were, of course, that first challenge was one of accessibility, getting access to the party workers, getting them to talk. So as well as, the lack of intra-party democracy, which meant that very often the party workers did not really feel comfortable enough to talk to me in the first place. It took time for them to open up. But at the same time, they often express their discontent, as we will see in the later slides, their discontent and disaffections with the party line through certain kinds of metaphors, guarded, indirect metaphors. So this is usually how I decided to navigate these challenges, by focusing on these metaphors and applying the interpretivist approach to see, to read between the lines. A little bit about belonging and how this paper understands belonging. So this paper understands belonging as a feeling of being at home, a feeling of integration into the institutional culture. The concept of belonging, as we have seen in the works of Neera Yuval-Davis or Nirmal Puvar, the concept of belonging looks at both the individual as well as the collective aspects. Institutional belonging in particular reflects oftentimes the extra-institutional social locations of actors. Women's belonging in political spaces reflects their historical marginalization from such spaces, as well as their individual social locations, their familial positions, their caste, class, race, etc., identities. And the other important thing is the boundaries of belonging, which will be discussed, of course, that who feels excluded and who is included into the party culture, who feels that their integration into the party culture is most complete. Okay, so coming to the context, this is for the reference of those of you who may not be very aware of the particular context of West Bengal, political culture of West Bengal. So West Bengal is a state in India which saw a very long, 34 years long democratically elected rule by the Communist Left Front. And the regime saw its end in 2011, when the AITC, which may be categorized as a centrist-populist party, a personalized political party, they came to power. And at the same time, in the past few years, we have seen that there has been a surge in the Hindu right-wing political party, the BJP's presence as well. The three parties which, of course, this paper talks about the AITC, it centers the AITC, but there also have been references to the other two parties, as you can see. The CPIM is the Communist Party of India Marxist, which used to rule West Bengal for a very long time. It was founded on the principle of Marxism-Leninism. It has been organized as a standard communist party. Which means that it is a cadre-based party and believes in vertical hierarchy. The AITC, which will be our topic of discussion today, is a personalized centrist-populist party led by a female leader. The BJP is a Hindu right-wing party which was founded on the principles of Hindu nationalism or Hindutva. It also has its organic links with other Hindu right-wing cultural associations. Coming to the AITC is a personalized, charismatic, leader-driven political party led by the incumbent Chief Minister of West Bengal. Ever since it came to power in 2011, it has amplified its vote share from 38.93% in 2011 to a record of 47.94% in 2021. In the recent years, the BJP has emerged as its primary electoral rival. However, while its rivals, the CPIM and the BJP, are marked by their very rigid, cadre-based organization, the AITC has a more personalized structure with sweeping powers accorded to its chairperson by the party constitution. The apex body of the party is the National Working Committee, while the basic unit of the party is the Polling Booth Committee. It has around 19 associate organs, including the Mahila Trinamool Congress, which serves as the party's women's wing. The chairperson, of course, has been accorded the highest authority to decide the national agenda of the party, to appoint party officials, etc. So all authority is concentrated in the hands of the party chairperson, who also happens to be the Chief Minister of West Bengal. The party, however, also has a space for flexibility through devices such as the Article 19 of the party constitution, where all units have been allowed to constitute additional units of their choice. As well as there are, these membership requirements which are pretty flexible. Anyone can join the party. So such organizational flexibility has also been reflected in the implementation of party quotas for women, gender quotas for women, as well as for other marginalized social identities such as scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. However, it also, this aspect of flexibility also can have a negative impact on the implementation of party quotas, because the constitution of the party mentions that the implementation of the party quotas rests on the, within quotes, competent authority in each committee to relax these provisions. So each committee's authority can actually choose to not implement the party quotas. So there you have the influence of the personal authority of the party committee chief. Coming to the role of the women's wing, here we can see that appointments to key positions in the party, in the mainstream of the party, has been a site of contestation. However, in the women's wing, such controversy has rarely been seen, which means that the party's women's wing may not be in a very strong position, that there are so many contenders for being the women's wing president. At the same time, we have also seen that several women party members who do not work in the women's wing have characterized the women's wing or the politics associated with the women's wing as non-serious politics, within quotes. This particular female party leader whom I had interviewed, she had said that, she was a trade union worker, and she considered her trade union work as more serious than women's wing work. So these are the kind of subtle ways through which the women's wing has been, quote unquote, shown its place. It has also been shunted in a way from the party mainstream, but at the same time, it has also been used to mobilize female voters who constitute, as we will see in the next section, who constitute a substantial, what is called the vote bank of the party. The women's wing routinely participates in party-dictated campaigns around price rise, issues such as the Citizenship Amendment Act, as well as also trains grassroots female volunteers. For several female members of the AITC, the women's wing also serves as a safe space for fostering collective solidarity, networks, and access to political capital, which they may not otherwise have. So even so, despite the role that the women's wing has, the segregation of the women's wing from the mainstream party organization was quite noticeable, as well as its subordination to the mainstream. This has also been increasingly hampered, that is the autonomy of the women's wing or the space for it to work has been facing quite a lot of obstacles, given the fact that during election time or just before election time, several women's only mobilizational forces or outfits are created by the party, which aim to mobilize female voters, but they're not the women's wing. They are exclusively, connected to the party mainstream, to the party leadership, party elite, etc. So these are the kind of factors that oftentimes obscure the importance of the women's wing in the party. As well as there are certain other factors like the party leader, Mamata Banerjee, who is also the chief minister. Her personalist association with the several welfare schemes that I had hinted at before has been giving the party a lot of electoral dividends, particularly from women voters. But it has also invisibilized the women's wing to an extent. Coming to the descriptive representation of women, in terms of candidate lists, AITC has consistently fielded more candidates than its rivals and also more than the national average. Increasing salience of female voters has also meant that the party has been fielding more and more female candidates. It also has voluntary quotas, which I have mentioned are pretty flexible. Some scholars have mentioned that the party fielding more women as candidates would be seen as a strategic recognition of winnability of the candidates instead of any ideological commitment to gender parity. We have also seen that in the recent elections, there are several women candidates who have been fielded again and again, and they have won. So the winnability probably has been one of the factors that has led the party to field more women candidates instead of, like the scholars said, instead of any ideological commitment to gender equality. In the current Council of Ministers as well, which is, of course, led by the AITC, the current government in West Bengal, women's representation has been intersectionally quite significant as well. There are women from the scheduled tribes, women from the scheduled castes, etc., who have been represented, also minorities, religious minorities, etc. So in a way, compared to, let's say, its rival parties like the CPIM and the BJP, women's representation in party candidate lists as well as in the government is marginally better for the TMC. But does that really translate into substantive gains for women or, pro-gender policies? That we have to see in the following section. In this section, we will discuss the gendered policy orientation, like I had hinted at. It offers an interpretive reading of the AITC government's gender welfare regime. Mamata Banerjee, the party leader's personalist association with the naming and propagation of these schemes, and I'll come to which schemes very soon. You can see some of them on screen. These, the Mamata Banerjee's personalist association with these schemes are designed to reiterate her image as a liberator of the downtrodden. So she is a populist leader, and she has been using these schemes as well as other, political maneuvers to, or also her self-fashioning, to establish herself as a woman of the people, a leader of the people. With women emerging as a distinct electoral constituency, such schemes have become a site of fierce political contestations. While these schemes, the AITC schemes, generally claim adherence to progressive social discourse, they are also grounded in cultural contexts of social conservatism. And in this paper, we analyze 3 such schemes: Kanyasri, Rupasri, and Lokhir Bhandar. Kanyasri, which was initiated in 2013, encourages girl students to continue with higher education and curb school dropouts and child marriage. It has also received international acclaim and holds over 25 million beneficiaries. Rupasri is another scheme that was launched in 2018. It is a marriage assistance program. It targets low-income families, which are designated in the policy document as economically stressed families, within quotes. Now, as you can see, Kanyasri and Rupasri are 2 schemes with very different aims. This could be read as, being in especially Rupasri's version, could be read as being in sharp contrast to the vision of Konnasri that facilitates higher education prospects for girl students. If we consider the respective guidelines for Konnasri and Rupasri, certain differences can be noted. While the Konnasri guideline is more comprehensive and reflects the prevalent discourse on development, uses terms such as feminization of poverty, etc., the Rupasri guideline provides no rationale for the policy. It is also marked by its very technocratic tenor. In terms of its beneficiaries also, Konnasri and Rupasri are quite different from each other. Konnasri targets individual girl students. It provides financial assistance to these individual girl students at different levels of their education. Rupasri targets families. So in a way, it also contradicts Konnasri's policy goals of stressing upon individual girl students. And, in terms of its emblems, as you can see on the screen, Konnasri shows a young woman studying a book with a very steady, brooding gaze. Right? And Rupasri, in contrast, shows a woman bedecked in Hindu bridal attire with a very shy, downcast gaze. So even in terms of the emblems, you can see certain kind of symbolic differences between the two schemes. While it may seem like a fundamental incoherence in policy making, it can also be seen that the fundamental incoherence can also be seen as government's attempt to simultaneously cater to the sentiments of its progressive and orthodox support bases. At the same time, we can also see a discursive commonality underlining the policy regime, because both the terms Konnasri and Rupasri denote Bengali aestheticized adjectives for young women. Konnasri denotes the charm of a young girl, while Rupasri denotes her physical beauty. So you can see that there has been a traditionalist cultural association of women with physical beauty, and that has been instrumentalized by these policies. And it also shows us, policies and their contradictions also shows us how hegemonic gender constructions can weave into the practice of developmental policymaking. At the same time, we can also see that in particular, Konnasri has also been criticized by its critics, not just its political critics, but also some scholars who have said that Konnasri's efficacy in addressing rising child marriages or school dropouts has been brought into question. Now we will come to a short discussion of Lokhir Bhandar, which is an immensely popular direct transfer financial assistance scheme for women aged 25 to 60. This scheme, in its naming, evokes Hindu iconography. Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and prosperity, and Bhandar means her, Lakshmi's pot, or So Bhandar basically means an earthen pot. So it evokes an imagery of women saving money by storing it in an earthen pot, saving money for any family emergencies, etc. So by evoking Hindu iconography as well as its domestic imagery, it reaffirms women's cultural association with domesticity, while at the same time it also facilitates the state recognition and monetization of domestic care labor that has historically been performed by women and has also historically been unpaid and undervalued. AITC's recent electoral successes in West Bengal has very often been drawn to, as well as by the party itself, has been drawn to its popularity, Lokhir Bhandar's popularity. It has also been successful in constituting a female voter base, often derisively called a vote bank by its critics, which have been also interpreted as loyalist, a loyalist beneficiary vote bank. So Lokhir Bhandar has, in a way, also created certain kind of polarizing impact or a polarizing appeal among its supporters and its detractors. So now we come to the institutional belonging of women party members. And if you have any questions about these schemes, we can always come back to it in the discussions. Firstly, we see the role of family. The role of the family of women party members has been crucial, and this has been noted even in other works which similarly deal with women party members. Sorry, can you see the screen? Okay. I hope you can all see the screen.
Your presentation, is there something else?
Yeah, I hope you can see the presentation. My screen suddenly
Yes.
went dark, so.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so as I was saying, the role of the family has been crucial in facilitating the continued access to political party cultures, as well as in being the launch pads. So women with familial connections, with dynastic connections, historically have found it easier to get into politics, right? Because they have the dynastic social capital, as well as oftentimes they have financial capital to engage into politics. Several interviewees affirmed that the continued support from their families was essential for them to conduct their responsibilities in the party. Oftentimes, living in a joint family was beneficial for them because their domestic responsibilities were shared by other female members of the joint family. One important aspect of living in a family for women party members, and as well as engaging in political work outside, was the presence or the need of active or tacit consent from their male relatives, their husbands or fathers or brothers, whatever it may be. In the interviews, in their narratives, this active or tacit consent from the male members was oftentimes coded as permission, quote unquote, permission, as you can see it in some quotes here. This, to me, signaled a naturalization of the gender division of labor in first place. As you can see in the first quote, that we will complete our domestic duties after we go back. So it's not like the women are freed from their domestic duties, but they still consider it as an emancipatory or liberatory experience, that they were allowed to go for the party meetings. Some others, both at the grassroots as well as a few at the elite level, have spoken about the deep personal costs they have had to bear because they were involved in party politics despite their family's lack of support. And one such interviewee you can see over here, how she recalls that she had also been beaten up by her family members, but then, she continued participating into these political activities. Now we will come to how the women view the political party or the party culture. Now, alongside serving as a resource pool and a support system, the family is also frequently deployed as a metaphor by the party members to indicate their institutional belonging. The party was often characterized by the interviewees both as a large joint family as well as a mansion, whose upor mohol, so upor mohol, the idea of upor mohol roughly translates into higher level or higher tier of a feudal mansion. So this upor mohol, it was imagined by them to be inhabited by the party elite. And they often use these metaphors like the upor mohol, or describe themselves as low-level workers or nichu tolar kormi. And in this way, they tried to, some of them at least, tried to communicate their discontent and disaffection from the party line, because they found it difficult to say anything directly. The party, the imagination of the party as a joint family, which I have identified as a fantasy, contributes to the containing of antagonisms and the naturalization of the social logic of vertical party hierarchy, as well as, the lack of intra-party democracy and the sedimentation of male authority, the authority of the male leader in the party. The family, when interpreted through a contextualized lens, gives us, in the particular specific historical context of South Asia, gives us the image of patrilineal descent and overarching male authority. So if we interpret it through the particular contextualized lens, we can understand that when the interviewees described the party as a joint family, it automatically indicated the naturalization of male authority, as well as the naturalization of the authority of the elites in the party. So this particular logic or social logic of vertical hierarchy contributes to the overall institutional continuity of the party, gendered institutional continuity of the party, as well as the fantasy of the party as a family, as a joint family, coupled with the expectations, the gendered expectations of deference to party leadership that was expected of particularly women in grassroots party workers, constitute the phantasmatic logics, the emotional attachment, which are surprisingly very enduring, which also makes women stay on in the party despite their experiences of alienation, their experiences of marginalization from the party. The interviewees oftentimes spoke about their gratitude to the party leadership for party gender quotas. And even if they criticized some policies such as extending Lokhir Bhandar to all women, irrespective of their social income groups, grassroots female interviewees were often quick to reaffirm their personal loyalty to Mamata Banerjee. And this was a very important aspect of their institutional belonging, continuously performing their loyalty and affirming their loyalty to the top party leader. In here, I could also see that institutional belonging for some grassroots women was also transactional in a way, because several grassroots interviewees spoke of joining the party due to the promise of very low pay contractual jobs, which are very important at the time of job scarcity and low female labor force participation. So this aspect could also be seen on a limited scale. So like I was saying, as you can see in the quotes, personal loyalty to the party leader and the constitutive influence of Mamata Banerjee's leadership on the careers of these women members was seen as very important for all the interviewees, irrespective of their position in the party leadership. So like the first quote is from an MP, a woman MP. She's a very prominent female party leader. And the second quote is from a municipal councillor. As you can see, both of them are deeply enamored by the leadership of Mamata Banerjee. So this indicates an interdependent relationship between the institutional belonging of women party members and Mamata Banerjee's populist self-fashioning. And, in particular, Mamata Banerjee's highlighting of emotion, sentimentality, and vulnerability, as well as her image as a street fighter. These have been very important in how, in inspiring the women to join the party in the first place. Now we come to the construction of binaries, because as I said before, the social logic is particularly one of conforming. How do the women in this particular context, how do the women conform to the vertical party hierarchy? Now we see that there is also a political logic at play, the logic of gendered boundary creation, a logic of antagonisms that also frames the institutional belonging in the party. The institutional belonging of women party members in the AITC, as per the interviews I've done, is dependent on their repeated demonstrations of loyalty, while at the same time their performative condemnations of any criticisms of the AITC government's administration. This extends to instances such as Shondesh Khali, where, recent instances such as Shondesh Khali and the Arjikor rape murder case protests. In Chandeshkali, the women protesters, the rural women protesters, accused the local AITC strongmen of economic, very long-standing economic and sexual exploitation. In response, the president of the party's women's wing characterized it as Toiri Kora Andolon, meaning a manufactured movement, to counter the popular perception of the Chandeshkali movement being a spontaneous movement. This, of course, is a developing story, and several versions of the movement have come up. But as you can see in this particular quote, this is a grassroots female member of the AITC. When I asked her about Chandeshkali, this was her response, that this is election season, and she considered the movement as rumor mongering by the female protesters. So concomitant with this practice of vilification of dissidents, and this is a very populist practice, vilification of dissidents, is also the parallel populist practice of extolling the beneficiaries. So, and this is done by Mamata Banerjee in all the speeches she delivers, and, particularly also the female leaders. They oftentimes invoke the female vote bank. So from placing, women at the forefront in her audience to addressing them as my Konyasris or my Lokhir Bhandars. So Mamata Banerjee and her party colleagues, oftentimes they equate female voters to the beneficiaries. So their identities are subsumed into being beneficiaries of a particular scheme. In this way, Mamata Banerjee, like a true populist leader, reinforces a direct and personalized emotional connection with the loyalist female voter base, while excluding outcasts and critics, dissidents like the Chandeshkali protesters. Now, this is also important for us to note that several women protesters who are extremely poor, economically, they have reported that they were also beneficiaries of different schemes of the government, but several of them had reported that their funds had stopped coming because they had protested. So there is this parallel exclusion of outcasts and critics from the party, as well as from the government. So there you have your political logic. Those women who do not conform to an acceptable femininity oftentimes find themselves excluded. And acceptable femininity is always supposed to be very docile and, deferential to the party leadership. So in this way, a particular image or model of femininity, political femininity, is constructed, which is centered around loyalty to the party leadership, loyalty to Mamata Banerjee, and loyalty as a beneficiary. Coming to the concluding arguments, women's institutional belonging in the AITC is mediated, as we can see, mediated through their loyalty to the party leadership, their social locations, and standards of appropriateness. More permissiveness for vocal women at the higher level, women leaders at the higher level, has a cost. The cost is absolute loyalty and silence on instances of sexual violence and other forms of gender injustice that are committed under the AITC regime. Gendered institutional continuity is sustained through the production of binary models of political femininity and the extolling of one model, the deferential, self-effacing female party worker over another. Thus, institutional belonging can help us to understand why women continue to persist in their political vocation despite their exclusion and marginalization. It focuses on the enduring emotional attachments, such as feelings of loyalty, feelings of identification with the party leader, symbolic identification. And it can also tell us a lot about the impact of personalized party culture on women's political inclusion. Thank you very much for listening to me patiently. I'm really looking forward to your questions and feedback.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rachel Chaudhry, for this very informative, insightful, and timely presentation. Very, very interesting indeed. I would like to open the floor to the guests and to the attendees to actually ask question or add the comments. So the floor is yours. Maybe Swarna, do you have anything to add or?
Oh, nothing to add because she's the expert.
Said
So
it
I'm just
all.
listening. Yeah, ask. Maybe.
Ask,
How
yeah.
does this compare with the other two parties you've been studying, Brahma?
So should I answer now or should I take any?
Maybe take a couple of questions if there are. Otherwise, you can use this as a warm-up question for the audience.
Any of the attendants is having a question or comments or an addition? Would love to hear from you.
Hi.
Yes, Geeti.
Yes, thank you. Hi. Thank you, Proma. That was a fascinating talk and also just really interesting to see where the research has moved. So this is sort of a follow-up to Swarna's question as well. I was wondering, so in this dynamic of dismissal of the wrong kind of femininity, I mean, on some, and you characterized it as populist, right? To vilify dissent, and to kind of characterize it as, in some sense, spurious, engineered, and so on, that it's all a kind of political theater. So is that distinct from how the other two parties that you studied also deal with, I mean, they also deal with this sort of dissent, or this sort of criticism of their actions? Like, is this you know, a feature of a ruling regime that is, you know, does it play out differently in in opposition regimes or and also in political parties that are not so strongly founded on this idea of mobilizing a gender-based base?
Any other question from the attendants or comments or addition to Dr. Ray Chaudhry? Maybe Dr. Ray Chaudhry, we can actually answer questions.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Swarna and Geeti, both of you, for your excellent questions. So coming to Swarna's question first, and maybe I can tie up Geeti's question to it because it's kind of similar in the way that you both of your questions focus on the other two parties and the shared discursive space in which all the three parties coexist. So yes, I mean, as part of my PhD, as you might know, that I have studied the three parties, CPIM, BJP, and the TM and the AITC, and I have found that their respective political, party structures have a lot to do with how their gendered cultures have evolved, as well as the party ideology. So the role that party ideology plays in BJP and the CPIM is usually being played by the personalized authority of Mamata Banerjee in the AITC. So having said that, I can come up with certain examples about how both the parties have dealt with dissent, as well as how they have mobilized women, despite not paying so much attention or a single-minded focus to gender-based mobilization like the AITC does. Okay, so coming to the CPIM, it has a certain kind of organizational principle that I have indicated in the slides called democratic centralism. So democratic centralism, very briefly speaking, it seeks to merge the two slightly opposed organizational thrusts, one towards maintaining intra-party democracy, as well as the other one towards centralized command and authority. And critics of the party have said that oftentimes what happens is that centralized authority prevails over the democratic impulse. And many often, there are several instances, not just in West Bengal, but in other states as well, like in Kerala, that there have been very popular female leaders, Communist Party leaders, who have come up from time to time. And one of them, I think, also became a chief ministerial contender, but she was cast aside, of course. And the reason given was that the party does not believe in personalized authority. Okay, but the party apparently has no problem fielding the personalized authority of a male candidate, which they are doing in Kerala right now under Vijayan. So there are these double standards that are there. And there was also this very interesting aspect of individual versus collective, which I saw that the female party leaders were also adopting in their own articulations of institutional belonging, that they did not see themselves as women or as individuals, but as leaders of a particular committee. So that was how they saw themselves and the party they belonged to, that their gender identities were seen as an obstacle to their becoming a communist. Now, this was, again, an ongoing process which they conceptualized or imagined as a struggle, quote unquote, that this is an ongoing process of becoming a communist, of becoming what they called declassed and degendered. So there are these philosophical maneuvers through which women's participation and women's ascent into leadership has oftentimes been stifled in the party. Now, coming to the BJP, I think that, of course, they have their own set of ideologies, Hindu right-wing ideology, which may be characterized as a nativist, right-wing populist ideology. So BJP used to have this non-personalized political structure, a party structure, as well as organic links with the RSS, which was, which still is Hindu right-wing cultural association. And many women actually come from the RSS background, and they find it easier to integrate themselves into the party culture. And oftentimes, when they spoke to me, they would start their interviews or start their narratives by saying that they belong to an RSS family, that their families went, way back to the RSS. So belonging to the RSS was a test in a way, or, or a privilege, you might call it, that helped to ease their entry into the party. And this was not often a dynastic connection. Sometimes their family members would be maybe informally attached to RSS, but they might have made it big, these women. So it differed from interviewee to interviewee, but there was this link with the RSS that was flaunted by the female party members. And there was also this particular thrust towards defeminization, which I saw actually not just in the BJP, but in the other two parties as well. But in the BJP, it was quite prominent that there was this particular female leader from the BJP who happened to be an MP, and now I'm not sure what she's doing right now, but she was a former MP. So she told me this anecdote, which I would like to share with you if time permits. It's a short anecdote, but I think it illustrates the way that defeminization discourses have taken root in the party. So she told me that one day she was traveling with the state president, a male president, and I think somewhere she was going in the car, and she was also surrounded by male party members. She was the only woman there. And they were joking with her, teasing her or something. And she said that she was quite hurt. She said that, how could you say this to me? You're like my, I'm like a sister to you. She said this to the BJP state president. And the president told her, no, but you're not our sister. And then he added, you're a brother. So this showed, to me at least, and the very proud way that she was talking about this incident to me, or mentioning this incident to me, it showed me how well integrated she has become into this homosocial culture of the party, that she had to let go of her femininity at all, as well as her sexuality, everything, in order to become accepted as a party member, right? Now, how do they deal with the dissidents is interesting. So in the CPIM, initially, what happened among the and this is something I saw even among the more senior female party leaders, there was this attempt to brand that dissident as individualist, as acquisitive, all those attributes which a communist shouldn't have, right? So there would be these jabs at how the particular person would, or the particular woman would be wearing makeup, etc., which was not very communist-like. So these would be these informal ways through which a female party member could be excluded, right? And at the same time, you would also see that there was and this was not really gendered in a way, but it also affected female members of the party. There was this debate among revisionists and radicals in the party. So this went on for many years, and now we don't see much of it at play. But there is a hostility against, hostility towards feminists in the party, even now, because feminists were traditionally seen as agents of imperialism by the Communist Party discourse. Yeah. And now I see that they have warmed up considerably towards feminists and, trying to make common cause with feminists. But there is a certain level of hostility towards liberal feminism, which understandably remains. In terms of how the BJP deals with female dissidents, I think expulsion is one of them. There have been instances when female party leaders have been expelled in my state, at least. But there is also the very subtle, sometimes populist way of branding them as enemies, particularly some female leaders who might end up defecting to the TMC, they become the enemies. And defection is very common. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, so these are the things that I thought would make sense in the context of these two questions.
Thank you.
So much, Dr. Chaudhry, for this very insightful presentation. We really appreciate that. I personally learned a lot. And I'm going to give the floor to Swarna if she has something to say, and then we'll close our informative, very, very informative panel with great attendance, by the way. Please, Swarna.
No, I have nothing to say other than thank you, Proma, and a reminder that people can pitch. The links are in the chat, and we will meet next month, third Wednesday, 1200 UTC, 5:30 Indian time, same place. Please look out for us. Please get on our mailing list and come back for the next month. We don't have a speaker yet. Maybe it's you if you pitch.
Yeah, let's take advantage of this great attendance. Please send your pitches, and would love to hear from you for next month for another webinar on women and politics in the Global South. Thank you again, and wish you a great day, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Swarna, Yasmin, and Uditi in particular, and thank you, Geeti, for the question as well.
Thank you so much.